So this PowerPoint is going to be about soil and plant nutrition. Okay, first let's start off with what we know. We already know that a plant needs to get nutrients in order to survive. Well, to get its nutrients, it does this in two different processes. One is through the sunlight. With the help of the sun, energy is released. That's what these arrows show. It shows the energy that the sun gives off that is taken in by the plant. This energy helps the plant undergo a process known as photosynthesis. With photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide that is freely found in the air is taken into the plant. The carbon dioxide is then converted to a sugar that the plant uses in order to continue its life cycle. The other process is through the soil. In this picture here, you see that in the soil there are water molecules. A part of these water molecules contain inorganic nutrients and ions. These ions are needed by the plant, so they're taken in through the root and it goes up through the stem. It helps the plant grow and also complete a life cycle and reproduce. So we discussed that plants need inorganic nutrients that are found in the soil. Well, to understand how the plant gets these inorganic products, we have to know the process. First, we should know that soil is negatively charged. So soil has a charge of minus. Okay, the cations that are found in the soil, which are the inorganic nutrients, they are positively charged. Because the soil is negatively charged and the ions are positively charged, this forms an attraction that creates a bond. After this attraction, the rate of percolation is decreased. Percolation can be described as a coffee filter. When you make coffee, you put the ground coffee in the coffee filter paper and the water runs through it. The liquid that you get out is a solution mixed with the grounded coffee in the water, but the coffee grinds don't actually go into it. This is the same thing as percolation. This states that when the water goes through the plant roots, the ions in the soil don't go into the roots directly, but the part that's in the solution goes through. Okay, so this picture is used to help show the process of cation exchange, which is what we just discussed. Okay, so we said that soil is negatively charged, which these little this little diagram indicates. The ions that are present are positively charged. See, positive, positive, and so on. Because these are positive and these are negative, these are attracted. Okay, so the whole process of cation exchange is this entire picture. In the root hair, you have a process going on which releases hydrogen ions. The release of hydrogen ions makes the soil more acidic. In addition to releasing these hydrogen ions, they can bind to the soil particle because it's a positive charge and a negative charge. And these ions are available to get into the root hairs, which then goes to the plant. This is known as cation exchange. Okay. Soil is negatively charged. So if we had negatively charged ions, that attraction that forms would not connect, it wouldn't form. This means that percolation would be easily allowed, meaning that because the bond is not formed, they can easily flow through the little filter per se that we talked about. And also, for soil absorption to be great, you need to have a large surface area. When discussing the inside of the body, we talked about how a larger surface area allow more liquids to flow through and allow a higher rate of absorption. Well, soil is the same way. Clay is a main component of soil and sand because it has a high surface area to volume ratio. This means it has a high surface area allowing great levels of absorption. So now that we have discussed what essential elements are, we're going to talk a little bit more about them. Essential elements make up about 80 to 90% of the water that's found in plants. Once you take a plant and you completely dry it of all its water, you have the dry mass. 96% of that is carbohydrates, and 4% of that, and the remaining 4% of that are inorganic substances. So that shows just how small of an amount you have of inorganic substances in a plant, but yet and still it is so important. An experiment called the hydroponic culture was made to find out what the essential elements are. And this is somewhat like the experiment we did. Well, it is the experiment that we did in class. This is when you take a plant and instead of planting it in its soil to grow, you plant it in different nutrients. And you see if this plant can undergo its life cycle and reproduce. And if it can, then it's an essential element that the plant needs to survive. And if it does this without the nutrient, then the nutrient isn't essential and it isn't needed for survival of the plant. Okay, there are two types of essential elements. You have macronutrients and micronutrients. So there are 9 macronutrients, and they are needed in large amounts, which gives them the name macro. 6 of them are used for structure, and they are carbon, oxygen, sulfur, hydrogen, phosphorus, and nitrogen. Nitrogen helps the most with the crop yields, so the growth of the plant. The other remaining 3 are potassium, calcium, and magnesium. The macronutrient that I decided to concentrate on is potassium. Potassium is found in the plant as K+ because of its charge of 1. Once you dry the plant of that 4% of essential nutrients that is found, 1% of that is potassium. Potassium functions as a cofactor for enzymes, a major solute functioning in water balance, and operation of the stomatum. Okay, so going to look at operation of the stomatum first. When you have operation of the stomatum. When you have a large concentration of potassium ions, this will regulate whether the stomata opens or closes. So if there are not as many potassium ions as needed, the stomata will not open and close the way it needs to. So this means that the plant cannot get as much water in or enough carbon dioxide in to help it complete its life cycle. If it can't get enough water in, it's not hydrated properly. And if it can't get enough carbon dioxide in, it can't undergo photosynthesis to convert it to sugars, which is needed to reproduce. So that talks about how it helps with the operation of the stomatum. We talked about the water balance because of the stomata being able to open and close to allow water to pass. Cofactor for enzymes. So let's say this is our enzyme. Okay, finish wrong. Okay, well, our enzyme has a triangle shaped opening. Let's say our substrate is the little sphere. Well, this substrate cannot fit into the enzyme's active site. This is when we use a cofactor. Okay, so a cofactor would be made to go inside of that. It fits into the active site, so your substrate can then fit. So the substrate went into your cofactor, which fits into the enzyme to start operation. If you have a deficiency in potassium, this is what the plant will look like. You have drying edges of the plant, as you see right here with the little brown edges. The plant's dried out and it's starting to wither. You see the yellow coloring because of the lack of water that's able to get in. The stems become weak and the roots become poorly developed. And this is mostly found in acidic and sandy soils because, as we discussed, acidic soils allow the ions, the essential ions, to get into the plant. And sandy because it increases the rate of absorption. Okay, moving on to the next set, we have micronutrients. There are 8 micronutrients, and they are chlorine, iron, boron, manganese, zinc, nickel, copper, and molybdenum. It's supposed to be a space right here. Okay, these are needed in tiny amounts. That's why they're called micronutrients, because micro means small. Okay. Sodium can be considered a ninth micronutrient, but this is only in C4 and canned plants. And this is because sodium regenerates phosphophenolpyruvate, and this is used as a CO2 acceptor in their pathways. Micronutrients functions as cofactors for a lot of enzymes, and because of this, they play like a catalytic role. This is why it's only needed in tiny amounts rather than micronutrients being needed in large amounts. The micronutrients I'm going to talk to you about is zinc. Zinc is found in plants as zinc 2 plus because of its charge. If you take a plant and rid it of all of its water, the amount of zinc found is 0.002%. So that's a very small amount. So that shows just how small of a micronutrient that you need. Okay, the function of zinc is the formation of chlorophyll, cofactor for some enzymes, and needed for DNA transcription. Well, DNA transcription helps the genetic information pass along through the plant. Formation of chlorophyll will give the plant its green color. And the cofactor is what we talked about previously. It helps the substrate bind to the enzyme. So if we don't have zinc in our plant, then the plant would have a reduced internode length, crinkled leaves, because of the lack of DNA being able to be transcribed, and also was not mentioned in the book, but because you have a formation of chlorophyll used for zinc, and zinc is not present, your leaves will look like this, and they won't be as green as they should be, like right up in here. So you'll get a yellowish hue, saying that your plant has a deficiency. And this is common in some different geographic regions. That's the end.